I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're stepping into a bold, modern conversation with the Bard. The name of the book, Shakespeare. Sonnet replies to the 154 sonnets of William Shakespeare. It is written by a terrific author. His name is Martin Bidney, and his book is a full poetic dialogue. 154 brand new sonnets responding one by one to Shakespeare's original sequence as if it's a psychologically rich verse novel of desire, rivalry, obsession, and self-reflection. If you love Shakespeare, love poetry, or love the idea of classic art getting a fearless contemporary reply, Shakespeare is a fascinating bridge between then and now. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Martin, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Sure, thank you. And here is Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
You may notice that we look very much alike. Somehow my genius of a cover designer came up with a portrait of Shakespeare, which shows that we have similar hairstyles and beard styles and even shirt fashion. It's quite remarkable. The picture of me is true to life when I was 34 years old and the day before I got married. Where she got the Shakespeare picture, I have no idea, but I'm eternally grateful to her for it.
Well, I think it's a great picture. It's a great side-by-side comparison. I think you're a much more handsome fellow. That's the only difference. But let's talk about your book. Why did you take on the enormous challenge of replying to all 154 Shakespeare sonnets?
That's because it didn't sound like feel like a challenge to me. I was reading Shakespeare aloud in my mind, as I always do, and I heard a music unmatched. And I'm a musician first. In my life, I was for many years so enthralled with music, that is playing the violin and singing, that I took very little interest in poetry. It took many long years. Actually, I didn't realize it fully till I was 61 and ready to not retire, that I realized that I didn't have to spend the rest of my life lecturing about poetry as I had done at the university for 35 years, but could rather write my own. And when I read this, I thought, this is marvelous. And I pictured it as a book with Shakespeare on the left hand, and you open up the book and there is a blank page on the right waiting for me to fill it.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you rewired and didn't retire, because this book is wonderful. Talk to us about what some of the questions you wanted to go back and forth with the Bard about. What were some of the dialogue you wanted to engage in?
Well, the most striking aspect of this book that is generally not heightened in high school discussions or selections of isolated poems is the pervasive bisexuality of the mindset. I wanted to emphasize that, and in fact, I can show you one poem that particularly grabbed me. It's almost a manifesto for that idea throughout the book. Is that all right?
Absolutely. That would be great.
Sonnet 20, I like to read to you. A woman's face with nature's own hand painted, hast thou, the master mistress of my passion. A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is false women's fashion. I apologize for the misogyny. He's not up to date. An eye more bright than theirs, less false in rolling, gilding the object whereupon it gazeth. A man in hue, all hues in his controlling, which steals men's eyes, and women's souls amazeth. And for a woman, now this really gets me, for a woman wert thou first created, till nature, as she wrought thee, as she created, worked on you, fell a doting. That could mean anything from absent-mindedness, momentary distraction, to dementia or short-term memory loss. I'm 82 myself. I think I know what's going on. And by addition, me of thee defeated, by adding one thing to my purpose, nothing. In other words, nature set out to make the perfectly beautiful woman, and she had almost succeeded had she not fallen into dotage or become a dotard. These are not complimentary words. As she did, she made a mistake. She got distracted. She made an error, and she added an extra organ to the woman. And now I'll let Shakespeare explain that. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, mine be thy love, and thy love's use their treasure. Everybody's happy.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I'm going to read my reply.
Okay.
You can see how that would stimulate a reply, can't you? One added organ has the androgyne, unneeded for the spiritual love the smitten poet cultivates. A fine summation is afforded, writing of the double-gendered rare attractiveness in the prodigious wizardry of one whom all admire will profit lyre, that is, the singer's harp, the poet's music, no less than women's opportunity for fun. The Mona Lisa, Bacchus, Anne, and John depict one riddling, enigmatic smile. I'm pointing out that Shakespeare isn't the only gender bender. The major artists of the Renaissance did the same thing. The ideal of beauty in Leonardo is Mona Lisa, but a lot of people don't realize it. He doesn't just show it to you there. He gives the same face to Bacchus and St. John, who are emphatically male, as well as to St. Anne. Leonardo doesn't care what gender you are labeled. What he cares about is that wonderful motherly smile. He can't forget that, and he's going to show it to you often. Platonic Leonardo leads you on, dualities that daunt to reconcile. Here man was woman first, then changed in state. You start with the wonderful woman, Mona Lisa. Man erst, the Sistine Sybil lady, late. I'm afraid that's a little too tightly packed. But what I'm saying is that Michelangelo is a gender-crossing poet as well, because generally, of course, his ideal of beauty is the superbly muscular man, but when he paints the Sistine Chapel, he has also the Roman Sibyls, who were regarded as oracles, heralds of spiritual truth in riddling language, and they are all women, but they are very hefty, and the male ideal of beauty, I think, comes through strikingly with the requisite alterations, which are relatively minimal.
Yeah.
There we go.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Were you going to read more?
No, I'm waiting.
Okay. I was going to say that in 2026, gender bending is certainly the topic of the of relevant conversation. So your book makes Shakespeare very relevant to our century, no doubt, right?
I felt that way, yes.
Yeah, yeah. What's your goal for this book? Do you hope to make Shakespeare more accessible, more reader-friendly, to show how it relates to today's topics and themes?
Yes, I basically enjoy so much this inclusive bisexual mentality, which is very, very important if you want to understand human beings as they are, human nature as the careful and encompassing, welcoming observer observes it, that you want to emphasize what Shakespeare is doing here that is most novel. Right before Sonnet 20 is Sonnet 19. And here I'd like to demonstrate to you how I go about offering an affirmative reply to this daring affirmation in Shakespeare.
Sure.
I say daring because I'll just point out in a kind of footnote, he was censored in England for 140 years. Sir John Benson in 1640 made an edition in which all the men were turned to women, so far as he could do that. And then it took 140 years until a man named Edmund Malone, a superb Shakespeare scholar, restored the book as Shakespeare wrote it. Okay. So it's interesting, isn't it? They not only not only does Shakespeare raise contemporary issues, but he suffers very contemporary penalties.
Exactly, censorship. Yep.
Yes. Let's try now number 19. This is one of the most passionate male-directed sonnets that he ever wrote, and my reply will try to bring out the beauty even more fully. Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleets, and do whate'er thou wilt, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets. But I forbid thee one most heinous crime. O carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with thine antique pen. Him in thy course untainted do allow, for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, old time, despite thy wrong. My love shall in my verse ever live young. That's remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
It's not just that he has a handsome boyfriend, it's that the boyfriend is a paradigm of male handsomeness to all who shall be born in future.
Yeah. It seemed like so many of the artists, whether they were sculptors, painters, or writers, sought to create a male ideal, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, indeed. And there's plenty of bisexual interest in the literature, too. Better not get started on that, but just think Christopher Marlowe. He's one of the gayest of poets that you can find.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's your reply.
Here's my reply. So antic ancient is the pen of time and of the poet, who in rivalry, confounding young and old, in frost and rhyme, compound their playfulness with majesty. Time writes no wrinkle on thine azure brow, had Byron claimed when speaking to the sea. Cavorting sportive energies allow for waves and winds of creativity. The tidal flows of time are like the act of breathing, tension freed by relaxation. A strain of music is a flowing fact. In breathing upbeat, downbeat exhalation. New old, emboldened, sounds the pounding heart, the pleasure of our life and measured art.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's quite a reply. That's quite a reply. And quite an undertaking to respond to the bard, of course. Let me ask you this, after completing this massive dialogue, who do you want to talk back to next? Or what kind of poetic conversation calls to you now?
Oh, my whole life is devoted to this. The one I'm going to be more widely advertising next is another one of equal or even greater boldness. There, I took the greatest poem which is also the greatest novel because it's a novel in verse, by Russia's greatest poet, Alexander Pushkin. Maybe you've heard of Pushkin. Yes. The novel in verse that I refer to is called Eugene Onegin. Tchaikovsky made an opera out of it, but he could only make an opera out of the lives of the characters as depicted in the poem. There was no way in which he could include the bigger half of the poem, which is about the poet who barges in and tells you about himself, and he claims to be one of Onegin's best friends in Onegin's earlier years, but really this Onegin is a nothing. And Pushkin, he steps in as Lord Byron did to all of his works, and he carries on a dialogue with you about Tatiana and everyone else. And it's also a feminist work because one of the greatest women heroes in Russian literature is Tatiana Larina. And so I'll talk about that in the future. But that's just one example of what I do. I carry on verse translation interviews with everybody I can find that excites me. And there's a whole lot of them because I belong to the Dead Poets Society.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're glad you are using your talents wisely and that you have more projects in mind because this one is terrific. Before we leave you today, let me just ask you, after readers get done closing the last page of Shakespeare, what do you hope sticks with them? What do you hope stays with them? What do you hope they understand better about the bard?
Well, I'd like to have them understand that candor is courage. He's so honest. That's why people like to read him today. In one poem that, if I had time, I'd read it for you. It's one of his later sonnets. He pictures a woman, a farm woman, who has a baby. She puts the baby down on the grass for a while she chases after to catch some chicks that have escaped from the coop. And Shakespeare says, "Oh, I know how that baby feels. I wish you would turn around and forget those chicks. Give me a little mother love, will you, please?" I mean, he doesn't put it that way, but he almost
Right.
does. And I comment on that and I say he's just as good a heterosexual as he is a homosexual poet. And that's one of the best in the book. And it is so honest. This is what people think is the so-called great Shakespeare. He's not so great. He goes through everything we all go through.
Amazing. Well, amazing work, amazing insights in this book, on the pages of this book, and during this interview today. The name of the book is Shakespeare. It is a compelling reminder that Shakespeare isn't a museum piece. He's a living conversation, and your replies prove the sonnet can still feel urgent, intimate, and new. Martin, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and the wonderful work on this book. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.